Welcome back to Close Mode. I'm Dan Sanchez, and I'm here with Brian Dietmeyer. And being a producer of this show and having the privilege to be a host on a number of episodes, I've noticed with all the people we have on the show, I get to hear them hear about Close Mode, and we explain the show to them, of course. But oftentimes they lean in, they're like, "Well, Ryan, I can see that logo behind your head there. What's CloseStrong? What's the company behind Close Mode?" And then we've heard it so much that I'm like, okay, Brian, we need to make a full episode about this. So, Brian, can you tell me, what is CloseStrong?
Yeah. So let me tell you the business reasons why we exist. Maybe that's because that's what's near and dear to my heart.
Start with that.
Yeah.
Set it up.
Cool. Yeah. The business we're in is, so if you look at right now, the close rate of forecasted deals, these are deals that are forecasted at 90%. The average close rate is 47-ish. The odds at a craps table are 49-ish. So that's kind of, there's a lot of deal slippage, and we're not even getting into to deal optimization or deal quality, just simply forecast accuracy, win rate. It's terrible right now. It's worse than the flip of a coin. The one thing we know for sure is that one-to-one coaching, effective coaching, not auditing, but real effective coaching that provides insight, will drive a 30% lift from your current win rate. So the problem is many frontline managers don't have the time to do that coaching. And a lot, quite frankly, don't have the chops. They haven't been properly trained. So CloseStrong exists to fill that gap. So here's the way I like to think about it too. Let's say you have 400 deals in your pipeline, and your current, maybe you're getting to 10% of those today, the good one-to-one coaching. You're getting to 40 deals. But optimally, you'd like to get to 70% of those deals, right? So this is where we come in. If you can go from 40 deals, we can take you to 280 deals, one-to-one coached, right? And the question is then, what impact does that have on your win rate? Where we can be connecting your strategy, your tactics,
That's huge.
one deal.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You're throwing around numbers like 30%, though, and I have to ask the question, is that an absolute or a relative percent? You know what I'm saying? It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Because if it's an absolute percent, then you're talking about you're going from 49 to 79%. Yeah. If it's a relative percent, then we're jumping from 49 to 63.
Yeah.
Both are outstanding results, but there's still a big difference between the two. So which one are we talking about?
Yeah, my data comes from Jim Dickey at Sales Mastery, and it's a 30% lift off your existing close rate. Right. So yeah, it's not a pure 30 points, but still, you're right. The business impact of that is massive.
It's still massive, even going from a 49% to a 63%. If you were already converting at 49%,
yes,
and going up to a 63% would be huge. But a lot of companies are closing less than that.
Yes.
So even just getting to 49% would be a huge win for some companies.
For sure. Yes.
So how is CloseStrong helping facilitate that? Like if we know effective coaching works, but close managers have a hard time actually implementing the coaching because managers are busy essentially being administrators.
Yeah.
How does CloseStrong help facilitate that?
Yeah. So we've coached billions of dollars of deals over 20 years in the kind of human services environment. So at the highest level, we've trained AI coach based on what we know now as best practices in terms of what are the process steps in getting a deal closed, and what is the data a rep needs to get it closed. So what the coach does is what we would do in real life. So imagine that the coach would, this is a forecasted deal. So if we use a football analogy, it's at the 50-yard line. So the coach kind of picks it up at the 50 after you've executed your medic, your challenger, your value selling, whatever. And the first thing it does now in the second half to pull this thing through is exactly what my coaches would do. The very first thing is saying, what is the current conversation we're having with the customer? And are we having it with the right people, right? Some stakeholder mapping. And oftentimes what we find in our coaching is that we're reacting to a conversation the customer wanted to have, maybe about a very tactical buy. So the very first thing that the coach will do is say, what is the conversation? Who are we having it with? Is that the right conversation with the right people? So that's kind of the very first level, pretty quick. The next thing that what we've heard from a lot of sales leaders is even in late stage deals, these are not properly qualified. We may have qualified them up front, but now we're a little deeper into the sales cycle and we need to requalify them to see if it's fitting our ideal opportunity criteria. So the coach will then actually present your company's ideal opportunity criteria and work through you to find out where you don't know things, where you're guessing, where things don't align, and create actions for you to get after some of those. So, where's the deal anchored? Who are we talking to? What are we talking about? Two, let's look at ideal opportunity. How well does it align with ideal opportunity? Cool. Let's put some actions in place to fill in some of those gaps. The next level, the third piece, is differentiating value. This is really the biggest piece that we did working with people, and what our AI coach does is really what we call differentiating value. And Dan, just some quick background. We've coached about $12 billion in win losses over 20 years. And what we've learned is that winners win when they show customers how they meet their needs at higher confidence and lower risk than alternatives. So what the coach is doing now in this third step is saying, all right, Dan, I know what you're selling. I know who you're competing against. I even know what geo or what vertical you're in. I'm going to help you do some side-by-side analysis to net out what are the 2 or 3 reasons why us? Why, given what the customer is trying to achieve, what are the 2 or 3 reasons why we should win this deal? And for those areas where we don't know, the coach will also generate for you discovery questions by stakeholder to say, okay, got it. Here's what your value looks like, Dan, versus this competitor. Here's where you're guessing or you don't know. And so let me prepare some discovery questions. And typically in the human environment, this is where the rep or the deal pursuit team would go away, collect some more data. This is where the rep will leave the coach, go collect some data, and then come back and we resume the session. The next session is saying, okay, what do we now know about our competitive position? What do we now know about how qualified this thing is? And let's begin to craft our customer facing offer, which really comes in 2 pieces. How should we be crafting our solution? What's an optimal solution that we want to sell? Maybe not what the customer's ordering, but what is optimal? The all-in, fully robust package. And then what are the commercial terms associated with that solution? So this section's all about expanding value for us and for the customers, right? And the final piece of coaching then is the AI packaging for the rep 3 going forward paths to say, all right, Dan, you just laid out for me the most robust solution with the most aggressive commercial terms. I've modeled for you 2 other solutions. And maybe the third solution is the one the conversation we were having with the customers, which is a very tactical one. And then there's something in the middle. And, we call this multiple solution options. It's presenting the customer with 3 different going forward paths at 3 different investment and effectiveness levels. And it's a game changer, because when we come back with our proposal, the human reaction is to say, well, I want that at a lower price. When I say, hey, Dan, I've got 3 different ways to solve your business problems at 3 different investment and effectiveness levels. Typically, no one of those 3 are chosen, but then you and I are now in the position of co-creating the 4th based on how the customer force ranks. So the coaching process is, what's the current conversation? Who are we talking with? Is that the right one? Is this thing properly qualified? What's going to make it an even better fit for us? And then how are we differentiated? Right? Where are we higher confidence and lower risk than their alternative, which could be a named competitor or build it themselves? How do we expand to the most optimal opportunity and then refashion that into 3 paths going forward? And at every level, you've got a coach who's preparing questions for you and throwing actions into your action plan and building customer facing offers. And it's precisely what we would do in real life. And this is on demand 24/7 when a rep needs it, right?
Yeah. What I love about this is this isn't software that doesn't have that's not just have some features. It's software developed on a methodology that's been proven over decades, a software that's been proven over different types of industries, different types of cultures. It's well-rounded yet specific enough that it helps reps follow a specific path that will increase success.
Yeah.
And I love a lot that it helps you get through what I call the messy middle, right? The middle of something is always the hardest part, whether you're making an art piece or playing a chess game.
Yep.
Lots of different ways to open a chess game, but the middle game is where you win and lose in chess, right?
Yeah.
People get good at the end game too, but it's getting through the middle at the 51-yard line, like you said,
Yeah.
and learning how to take the right steps to get it farther down the field in the football analogy that really matters. So giving people a clear blueprint of how to close it up, or hence CloseStrong, is the path forward. And I love what you're talking about in the last phase, coming up with the 3 different contracts. I remember at the last company, the CRO I worked for, man, he was great at coming up with contracts, but he was trying to come up with contracts for all the different prospects getting close to the end, right? And he was trying to craft the perfect one, the one that gets to the kind of the right margins. He was putting all his time into just one.
Yeah.
Let alone if you could turn it into 3, that makes it easier for them to see the value of the one in the middle, right? Just like we've talked about in the negotiation series, having AI speed up the development of those, and not just willy-nilly putting into chat GPT, but based on all the requirements that it knows so far about your company, what the buyer wants, and then crafting the good, better, best type option, saves a lot of time.
Yeah,
I can't wait for this thing to enter the market.
Well, what we know, Dan, and I'll close with this, is recent research that came out is that reps, 70% of them said, I don't want another form to fill out, another sales methodology form. I don't want another screen to fill out in a CRM. What I want is guided selling, right? And I want you to give me data that helps me qualify, give me discovery questions, help me do the competitive analysis, help me fashion my solution in my commercial terms. And that's, I often talk about the no blank forms. Reps 70% at 70% level say, I don't want blank forms. At the 90% level, they said, and I wonder if they are being sort of sarcastic, but the research actually shows, they said, I would take a pay cut. 90% of them said, I would take a pay cut if I didn't have to fill out another blank form. So everything we're doing is trying to guide them and even go beyond methodology to saying, these are the process steps and this is the data that we know that helps win deals in the second half of the sales cycle, and putting that at scale for reps.
Hashtag no more forms. That should be like our second podcast.
Agreed.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for outlining what CloseStrong does. I can't wait to point everybody back to this episode every time they're asking, what's CloseStrong?
Yeah.
This is CloseStrong.
Great. Yeah. And this is at a high level. There's a deeper dive on our site, but hopefully whoever's listening got it at high level. And thank you again, Dan.